They found a civilization older than history itself, buried beneath layers of earth and time. Its existence challenges the very foundations of what we understand as human chronology. Imagine a network of people whose rituals, architecture, and collective decisions predate earliest records of writing or agriculture. They existed even before permanent settlements as we know them. We think of history as a linear progression, a chain of events carefully documented and interpreted. Yet here is a paradox, a society whose signals echo through millennia, but whose voice was silent until now. What does it mean to discover such a civilization? What can it teach us about human behavior, adaptation, and perception? This civilization's story is a lens to examine human resilience, collective intelligence, and our understanding of time itself. Archaeologists first stumbled upon fragments of this civilization, not through grand excavation, but almost accidentally. Beneath an ancient plateau, they found structures defying conventional dating techniques. Stone alignments, circular platforms, and subterranean chambers hinted at a highly organized society. Yet it left no written records in the form we recognize. Carbon dating suggested ages predating known human settlements by tens of thousands of years. These discoveries triggered debates. Historians, psychologists, and neuroscientists collaborated to decode human adaptation principles, not just to place this civilization in a timeline, but to reveal its underlying principles. If humans existed in an organized form long before history, what does that tell us about civilization as a system? We can understand this civilization by approaching it as a complex network. Like the human brain, a society functions as a network of individuals processing information, stress, and opportunity. Unearthed structures suggest intricate collective behavior. Circular formations, for example, may have served as mechanisms for shared decision-making, optimizing the flow of information in a manner similar to a modern neural network. This society discovered that efficiency and adaptability depended not on hierarchy alone, but on the integration of every member into a responsive system. Their architecture is the signal. The behaviors encoded within it are the system's way of transmitting information across generations. Stress and adaptation emerge as central themes. We understand that stress responses are critical for survival. Chronic stress can erode social cohesion, yet this civilization shows evidence of periodic disruption without collapse. Anthropologists suggest that the society had mechanisms to buffer collective stress. Rituals, spatial organization, and resource allocation were likely designed to modulate anxiety and maintain group cohesion. When we look at the patterns of dwellings and communal spaces, we see evidence of redundancy, flexibility, and resource storage. These were not merely survival strategies. They were proto-psychological interventions at the societal level, regulating perception and response to uncertainty. It is remarkable to consider that tens of thousands of years ago, humans may have intuitively understood the principles of stress management long before these concepts were formalized in neuroscience. Another fascinating element is perception, both individual and collective. Neuroscience tells us that perception is not a passive reception of reality but an active construction, influenced by past experience, expectation, and social context. The artifacts suggest that this civilization manipulated perception deliberately. Spaces were designed to guide movement and attention, possibly to reinforce social norms or spiritual beliefs. Certain chambers were oriented to celestial events, creating predictable, awe-inspiring experiences that likely reinforced a shared narrative. In this way, the civilization's architects were not merely builders. They were orchestrators of perception, shaping the mental landscape of their society. It is a reminder that culture itself functions as a cognitive system, a shared software running on the biological hardware of human brains. Perhaps the most profound lesson comes from the limitations that this civilization confronted. Every human society operates within constraints, environmental, cognitive, and social. Yet limitations do not always constrain, they often enable. By working within scarcity, the civilization developed strategies that amplified the resilience of the group. For instance, circular platforms may have been designed to maximize social connectivity while minimizing energy expenditure. Redundant pathways and multiple entry points in subterranean complexes suggest contingency planning, anticipating disruption, long before formal risk assessment existed. In modern cognitive science, we understand that constraints force optimization, encouraging creative solutions that a limitless environment rarely necessitates. The story of this civilization is a testament to the idea that human ingenuity often emerges not in spite of limits, but because of them. As we delve deeper into the artifacts, another question emerges. How did this society preserve knowledge without writing? We often equate history with textual records, yet this civilization seems to have encoded memory in objects, spatial arrangements, and collective rituals. Imagine memory as a distributed network, similar to synaptic connectivity in the brain. Each action, artifact, and architectural decision carries information that, when interpreted collectively, becomes a durable record. This suggests that human cognition, in its social dimension, has always been capable of more than individual recall. Knowledge is a system-level property, emergent from the interactions between people, places, and practices. Modern neuroscience has shown that distributed networks, whether in brains or societies, are more resilient than any single node. This ancient civilization, in its silent sophistication, anticipated principles that science is only now formalizing. The twist, the moment that reframes everything, is that what we often consider weaknesses may have been the civilization's greatest strength. Certain vulnerabilities in their structures, open courtyards, accessible passageways, and apparent redundancies might appear inefficient to a modern engineer. Yet these features suggest a profound understanding of risk management at the collective level. Vulnerability does not equate to failure, it equates to flexibility. Neuroscientists today describe this as a system's ability to maintain homeostasis through adaptive perturbation. The civilization's so-called flaws may have been deliberate, designed to absorb shocks, distribute stress, and prevent catastrophic collapse. What seems weak in isolation is, in the systemic perspective, extraordinarily robust. The metaphor extends to our own lives. Moments of vulnerability, when approached thoughtfully, can catalyze resilience rather than diminish it. Consider the philosophical implications. If a civilization older than recorded history existed, it forces us to reconsider our definitions of progress, knowledge, and human development. Progress is rarely linear. It is iterative, contingent, and emergent from complex interactions rather than predetermined steps. Knowledge does not reside solely in texts or artifacts. It exists in patterns of behavior, social norms, and the organization of space and energy. Human development is not merely a story of accumulation, but of adaptation, distribution, and collective cognition. Every artifact, every chamber, every alignment is a node in a network that spans generations, encoding lessons in a form that transcends individual lifespan. Furthermore, this discovery raises questions about our perception of time. This civilization existed in a rhythm synchronized with natural cycles, environmental feedback, and social dynamics that do not map neatly onto the Gregorian calendar. By observing these ancient patterns, we are reminded that history is not just a sequence of dates, but a complex system of cause, effect, and emergent behavior. Time itself, as experienced by human societies, is a perceptual phenomenon shaped by survival needs, cognitive constraints, and social structures. The deeper we dig, both literally and metaphorically, the more evident it becomes that human experience of time is flexible, adaptive, and profoundly interconnected with our environment. The implications for modern neuroscience and psychology are equally profound. This civilization demonstrates that social cohesion, ritualized behavior, and spatial design are not merely cultural artifacts. They are mechanisms that enhance cognitive and emotional resilience. Modern research in collective intelligence supports this, showing that groups with structured communication, redundancy, and distributed decision-making outperform isolated individuals, particularly under stress. What we see in these ancient ruins is a prefiguring of principles that modern science is only beginning to articulate. That human cognition is fundamentally social, that intelligence emerges from networks rather than individuals, and that resilience is encoded in the structure of interactions as much as in the structure of matter. In exploring this civilization, we also confront a mirror of our own societies. We are part of a global network whose complexity rivals anything we have ever studied, yet we often perceive it as fragile or chaotic. By examining a society that survived extreme temporal scales without written records, we gain insight into how humans can collectively navigate uncertainty. We learn that adaptability is not a function of individual brilliance alone, but of systemic architecture, redundancy, and the capacity to process and transmit information. The ancients, in their silent wisdom, reveal to us the enduring power of cooperation, anticipation, and the elegant simplicity that arises from understanding constraints. This civilization challenges us to think differently about legacy. History, in its traditional form, emphasizes artifacts, texts, and monumental achievements. Yet the most significant lessons may reside in invisible structures, patterns of thought, rhythms of social life, and collective strategies for survival. When we reconstruct their civilization, we are not merely piecing together buildings or tools. We are decoding the algorithms of human resilience. The deeper philosophical question arises: how much of what we consider essential to civilization is truly tangible? And how much exists in the invisible architecture of relationships, decisions, and shared understanding? As we synthesize these insights, we encounter a profound convergence of science, psychology, and philosophy. Neuroscience tells us about distributed networks and adaptive systems. Psychology illuminates stress, perception, and behavior. Philosophy reflects on meaning, time, and collective intelligence. In uniting these perspectives, the story of this ancient civilization becomes not just a tale of the past, but a framework for understanding human potential. The signals left behind are not merely echoes of antiquity. They are guidance, encoded in stone and space, for how complex systems, whether brains or societies, can thrive across millennia. Ultimately, the discovery invites reflection on our own role in history. Are we attuned to the signals encoded in our environment, our social networks, and our collective memory? Are we aware of the constraints that shape innovation, the vulnerabilities that enable resilience, and the patterns that encode enduring knowledge? This civilization, older than history itself, provides a mirror. It shows that the principles governing human survival, adaptation, and understanding have remained remarkably consistent, even as the surface of history changes. To truly learn from the past, we must read beyond text and artifact, perceiving the architecture of human thought and society as a living system. So, what does it mean to find a civilization older than history? It means recognizing that human intelligence, social cohesion, and resilience are properties of networks, not individuals. It means understanding that adaptation emerges through constraints, vulnerability, and redundancy. It means seeing time not as a linear measure, but as a dynamic interplay of cycles, rhythms, and emergent behavior. And above all, it means appreciating that the wisdom of the past often resides in silent, invisible systems waiting for us to perceive, interpret, and learn. This is the gift and the challenge of discovering a civilization older than history. It forces us to expand our conception of what it means to be human, what it means to know, and what it means to endure. As you reflect on this, consider the subtle messages encoded in your own society, the rituals that shape perception, the networks that transmit knowledge, the redundancies that preserve resilience. History is not only a story of events, it is a story of systems. And perhaps, in understanding these systems, we can learn not only about those who came before us, but about the future we are collectively constructing. How might the signals we leave behind today be interpreted thousands of years from now? What patterns of adaptation and cooperation will persist, and which will fade into obscurity? The echoes of an ancient civilization remind us that the answers are encoded not in monuments alone, but in the structures of life, thought, and interaction that endure across time. If this exploration has sparked curiosity, consider diving deeper into the intersections of history, psychology, and neuroscience. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you believe this ancient civilization can teach us about the human mind and society? Like the video if you found these insights thought-provoking, and subscribe to Passlens for more journeys into the hidden architectures of human history, where each discovery challenges not only what we know about the past, but how we understand ourselves today.